This conference will now be recorded.
Yay!
Sorry, I didn't turn it on at the beginning.
Yep. Just as well. That little county strip next to Ridge Road, just east or just west of Ridge Road. You know, those are fascinating
This little skinny.
little strip.
Yeah.
Yep. But I bet there are frogs that are so grateful to have it as county owned instead of part of the adjacent development. You know, there aren't that many of these. Yeah, and that may not be over an acre, which is why I think that no, thank you GIS, but we're concerned about all county-owned pieces in this area.
So Robert, in the interest of time, I just clicked on this map on my home computer and I'd like a little bit more time to study it, and then we can talk about it intelligently rather than going through every one of them right now.
Can we do like 2 minutes of going like a bat out of hell straight down the coast, and you can see how few there are all the way to Seaside?
Okay, you got 2 minutes.
I have no control over the screen, so Julia, you're on. Let's go south.
Got you by Railroad Road and Camp Rylea. There's a couple spots there.
Okay.
Here is something off of Clatsop Plains near the, looks like near the Glenwood Village.
That little piece at Sunset Beach and 101. That used to belong to Jesse Bauer, who was a grandson of the founder of Sunset Beach. I didn't realize it was county owned. It's a funny strip that seems worth hanging on to. That's all along the east fork of Neocoxie Creek. You're at Sunset Beach and 101. So moving on south. And that piece again, you know, it's kind of below the Cullowhee Lake Park. I don't know what that piece is. Is that simply the driveway to the racetrack? You know, that's just above Anderson Road. It's in the location of where they used to have kids for sale. And I think that may be the little county road that goes from 101 to the old racetrack.
Right.
You know, there are these oddball little pieces, like over on the left, there's a county piece that's over a little bit smaller than my eyeballs. Yes, that one.
That's in Surf Pines.
Yep. So, yeah, maybe there's a nice little tiny county piece in the middle of Surf Pine. Heading on south, look for more pink. My 2 minutes is running out.
Yes, it is.
That funny long strip one, I don't know what that is, but it's an interesting because it's kind of in swale formation. You know, it kind of matches up with any likely Viola Dunca habitat. You know, it's not in Neocoxie Creek. It's over there, half-inch left. Moving on down toward Gearhart and Seaside. Okay, Julia, no more pinks.
Oh, that's pink. That's pink.
There we go. There's a big one in there. Are a couple of big ones. There's on the Neawana estuary. There are a couple of pinks. And then there's that big mother over there, I guess on the Nicanicum, or No, I'm not sure where that is. That big one off of 13th or whatever. So I'm happy to quit, but that's the concept. There aren't that many.
No, there aren't. And Robert, thank you very much for your background. And I am looking forward to looking at this. I'm sorry we have to put it off till next month, but I don't want to rush this. And then we'll be sure to have it on the agenda for next month. But thank you for all your background on this. So moving on, do we have any public?
Can I just back up 1 second? I know you want to get off this, but is our purpose in looking at these county-owned properties to determine whether or not the county is making appropriate use of them and make recommendations about how to use them? What?
That's a very good question, Diane. And my thought was, and my recollection of our discussion was that we would look at these pieces. For instance, the one owned there along the Neocoxie by the Colby Lake access, that would be one that we might want to see, make a recommendation that it be preserved for restoration of that waterway like we talked about. I mean, not exactly that wording, but
Right. So
yeah.
when we're reviewing this map, that's what we want to do independently and then as a group is to
Yes.
consider what we would recommend the county actually do with these pieces of property.
That's right. And I'm
Are there
not,
some are there goal 5 worthy places?
exactly.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily want to address every single parcel, but just like that one piece there by Colby Lake Access Road, that I think is one that we might want to make a comment on. But it doesn't, we don't have to talk about coming up with a plan for every single piece, just the ones that stand out in our goals. Does that help?
I gotta talk.
No.
Chinook's coming in here.
Uh-huh.
Okay. While I can appreciate the, like you're talking, Julia, you know, taking little pieces like that, we can't do that. The reason we're gonna be a little bit more persnickety is looking back at this information that we were sent. That goal 5 was what approached 20 years ago, and then there was a discussion or writing in here of first of 53 sites that are in Clatsop County that are of significance to Chinook, and then later on it says 90 sites instead of the 53, so they've added 40 something more. And I'm thinking these isolated parcels may have significant impact on the Chinook people. In other words, graves or sites of villages, cairns, whatnot. I don't want to dismiss those sites as possibly already been cataloged here by the County Planning Division and the State Historical. Anyway, that's our concern, is that we're going to miss some places. We're right now, Culture Committee and our council are concerned about the information of these 53 to 90 Clatsop Chinook sites that are sequestered or hidden or guarded by the state of Oregon and Clatsop County. And we want access to that list to compare with what we have. And I'm afraid maybe some of them have already been bulldozed over, looted and scavenged, desecrated, whatever. And we just want to know how many we can save And they may be in those little pink parcels that are out there. There aren't that many, so we just can't dismiss that fact.
So what I'm hearing you say, Don, is
Very
that you want,
concerned.
say again?
I'm very, very, very concerned.
Yes.
Very
So what
concerned.
I'm hearing you say is that you want that list, and possibly some of those sites are in these pink parcels, and then we can definitely identify those as parcels that we want to preserve or look at closely, put them on the list. Is that correct?
Right. I mean, the ones that are presently owned by the county definitely would be ones that we could target and get resolved. Unfortunately, the ones that are in private ownership, Euro-American ownership, whatever, that might be another issue. We might need to get into NAGPRA. We might need to get into the state. We might need to get into something to repatriate, relocate,
Mhm. But in terms of what we're
outright purchase, or condemn.
right. In terms of what we're doing now, I mean, this is exactly why we wanted to look at these county-owned parcels, because this is something that we can take action on now. And the others are, you know, that's like a step 2, but at least we can start on the parts that we have perhaps some control over. So I think
Yes.
that'll be good. Okay, then moving on real quick, I know that Gail sent out a notice on property sale of county-owned property out by Wana. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Other than the white-tailed deer are there,
Yes, and
and you know how Chinook feels about that.
yes, and I know that was wording, that wording was recommended to change in policy 5, but on this particular property, does anybody have anything to say on it? I just wanted to,
it looked like a piece of intersection of highway, and I don't know if there's still asphalt on it or what, but it was basically waste property for ODOT, and I don't know if there's any wetland left or what, but it was not the place that a whitetail wants to be standing adjacent to traffic.
okay.
It's a little.
I just wanted to cover that and make sure that there wasn't something that we were missing there. So moving on, we'll go on to review of goal 5 topics. And there it is. So what Gail put out was action items for our meeting today are what historic resources should be added to the inventory, should any of the historic resources that are currently listed in the comprehensive plan be removed, and what additional historic resources, if any, should be added. And reviewing the existing policies. We'll get through as much of this as we can. I'm not going to read it all because I'm hoping that you have it in front of you. So I'm just going to go ahead and start on goal 5. And oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. If you would scroll right to the 1, policy 1. It's so helpful to have this in front of us. So county encourages state parks division when developing a master plan for Ecola Park to give proper recognition to the historical activities that occurred there. And we already talked about this a bit, and recommended changes. The Clatsop tribe of the Chinook Nation would prefer proper recognition of historic activities that were done there, harvesting seafood, cedar, and spruce. So it sounds like we've discussed this, but I had additional thoughts on this particular policy, and tell me what you guys think. I think that it should be for the county encourages the state parks division when developing a master plan for Clatsop County natural resources, scenic and historic areas, and open spaces to give proper recognition to the historical activities that occurred there. So it's not just Ecola Park, but it's
Right.
all of our natural resources, scenic and historic areas, and open spaces. What do you think?
I agree with you, and I think we decided that we should kind of go through all of the policies. I mean, all of the goals, and take the specifics out of the goals because they don't make sense to have one goal for E. coli and another goal for,
Yeah.
if this is a county-wide 20-year plan, planning plan, defining and development plan, it doesn't make sense to me the way it's put together. Which brings
Yes,
us
you're,
also back to the question of what does protect mean when a property falls under the protection of the
yes.
county. We still
So
haven't figured that out.
I agree. I think that is what we discussed, but it didn't get in recommended changes. So Julia, if that's maybe something that we could add in there, that we recommended that the policies be less specific and more generalized, not just for Ecola Park, but for all of our areas.
Can I chime, please?
Yeah.
Less specific and more generalized.
Chinook will want to be more specific in identifying what's going on. The wording that we have reviewed from the email that was sent out from Gail has a lot of despairing wording. We need to be more specific. The wording like at Ecola, it is not Indians, it is Chinook, or excuse me, Clatsop Chinook. Those were our people that were there. They occupied that. And we're not going to talk 15th century. We have to talk time immemorial. Definitely time immemorial. And the biology, the archaeology, the history, all says time immemorial, not 15th century. So there's got to be some cleanup in this 20-year-old document and move forward. And to honor our people, to undo the injustice, this document needs to be rectified, cleaned up, and be more specific. So we're just gonna pick this thing until it's done clean.
Don, do you mean more specific as to locations or the general as to specific locations? Because I think that's what our hang up has been around the policies addressing each specific location at a time is those aren't really policies, those are strategies, but they're not policies that follow the goal that resolve the goal intentions. So I completely agree that where it's appropriate, the Columbia Chinook should be
Clatsop
all
Chinook.
of the policies should address the cultural appropriateness for the Chinook, for the Columbia Chinook tribe. But the specific locations, if we try to write a policy for each specific location that has its own culture, we're going to end up with kind of a mess on our hands.
So if I may interject here for just a moment, I think what I'm hearing Dawn say, it's not necessarily on the document that we're looking at right now, but Dawn, I believe, are you referring to the policies where, for instance, under historic sites, it says something about Indian, and you want that to specifically say Clatsop? No, okay.
Clatsop Chinook. Clatsop
Right.
Chinook. I mean,
Yes.
Let's get educated now and go forward. It is Clatsop Chinook. That's
Yes.
all that's been here in this land. So we gotta go forward with that, not backwards. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of Indians still left in America. So generically, that's fine. but we have to be more specific. The real ownership goes to Clatsop Chinook.
Yes, so what I'm hearing you say, Dawn, is throughout the document that Gail sent out, you want where it says Indian, that should say Clatsop Chinook. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Wonderful,
Okay.
wonderful. That's what
Absolutely.
I thought I heard you say. And I just wanted to clarify that. Does that make sense, Diane? It's not necessarily. Yeah,
No,
it's
that's
just,
exactly,
it's
that's exactly correct.
okay,
Yes,
wonderful,
exactly correct.
wonderful.
Yeah, you
Okay.
could just about do it with a search and
And
delete.
replace, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question
Robert?
for Mr. Abing, I have a question for Mr. Abing. This is Julia. Where I write Clatsop Chinook, should that be a hyphen or should it be a slash between the two?
It is 2 words, no hyphenation.
No hyphenation.
No hyphenation. 2 words.
Okay. But is there any punctuation between them at all?
Pardon, I didn't understand that question.
I'm sorry, is there any punctuation between the two names at all? Just
Is
a
it
space?
Clatsop
No,
slash?
it's just Clatsop Chinook.
No.
Just Clatsop Chinook.
Okay, thank you.
No,
Kind of like North
Yeah.
America.
two capital letters. Clatsop
My,
Okay.
Chinook.
my comment, Mary,
Yes.
I don't know where all it fits, but there was a lot of information related to Clatsop Plains in the Lewis and Clark journals that Captain Clark camped on such and such a river. And usually he uses a name, and then people don't know if that meant the Neocoxy or the Neawana. They also talk about having camped on an island in Cullowhee Lake. And I think it's very obvious that what that is there where the eagle nest is, that it was an island because back then it was a hill that was surrounded by water that has been drained away. So there's a lot more historical important stuff, even in the Anglo records,
Yeah.
that we need to go see and say, oh, this is important to the Anglos because Lewis and Clark camped here.
Mhm.
And they may not know whether this was the Neocoxy or Neawana. And other people have marked this was the path to get from Port Clatsop down to Seaside without going on the ocean. There are a lot of detail, a lot of detail locations that we want to be able to, of the historic importance of our study area.
Absolutely. There's a rich history there. But in the interest of time, is there anything else that we need to say about policy 1? Because I'd like to get to policy 2.
I have a question.
Question?
Yes. So I was looking at the policy 1 language, and I reproduced it over here because I was understanding that maybe you wanted to take out the term Ecola Park and devise something more general. Is that correct?
Right.
That's my understanding. Does everybody agree?
Right.
I don't understand.
Instead of policy, go ahead, Julia.
So the county encourages the State Parks Division when developing master maybe programs for state parks or for parks in general, programs for parks to give proper recognition to historical activities that occurred there. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Is that works? And then I added down below, replace Indian with Chinook or Clatsop Chinook throughout comp plan and supporting documents.
Okay.
That part is correct. The previous part, it's not just the park. It would be programs for natural resources, scenic, historic areas, open spaces.
Correct.
Natural resources and what? Say again.
It's right up at the top, in the red, natural resources, scenic and historic areas, and open spaces.
Oh.
Yeah,
in the header.
yes, yes.
Your work was already done.
Yeah, make it a little easy.
Excellent.
That's where I got the wording from.
I like it.
Yeah. Good. Okay, moving on to policy 2. This is about the Cannon Beach Cannon. It's been done. Do you think that we can delete that?
If it's done,
No interest to Chinook.
All in favor
Whatever.
of deleting that policy, raise your hand.
Yay.
Okay, good. Then we will delete policy 2. Policy 3 is the Lindgren House. And the recommended changes is continues to be maintained by the county. Any issues with that? Moving right along, because I know we have lots of other things to talk about. Policy 4, place commemorative plaques at the sites of the Falls Pulp Mill and the Shepherd and Morse Sawmill. And it looks like that is still in process. Julia, do you have an update on that?
Where are they?
I
Falls is at Young's River
not.
Falls, our traditional.
Youngs River Falls.
So you're
We have
looking
a-
for where the Falls Pulp Mill, Shepherd, and
And the
Morse
other one
Sawmills are, is that correct?
Is
It's the last under recommended changes. The last sentence is staff had not yet received a reply at the date this worksheet was prepared. Have you received a reply?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No, I have not heard anything.
Okay, so I think that we'll just leave that as it is for right now.
well, can I interject here?
Yeah.
Chinook, Clatsop Chinook has a little disagreement with this one, and it's the Falls Pulp Mill was built over an Indian fishing site or a Clatsop Chinook fishing site. That was a primary fish gathering source, food source for the Clatsop Chinooks that occupied the area between Waloski and the falls. So
Don, I want to say thank you so much for pronouncing Waluski. I really appreciate learning that pronunciation. However, what I want to say is that, so this is about commemorative plaques. This sounds like information that needs to be on those plaques. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
exactly, but I mean, everybody can have the Falls Pulp Mill, whatever, but prior to that information is the truth, and that must be on the plaque.
Yes, I think that's
was a very, very important food gathering source for the plains, the Clatsop plains that were on the east side of the dunes, and that is the before the plague. That's what kept them alive.
So Don, then could the county, or I guess that's who's doing the plaque, can they contact you in terms of the wording to put on the plaque? Our recommendation would be.
No, it goes to council.
It can come to me, and then I can transfer it to council, and council will make the clarifications and additions or subtractions, whichever, and then I can get that returned to me, and then that to this committee, to this prestigious committee.
So Julia, our recommended changes would be to add the Chinook Indian Chinook Clatsop. Sorry, bear with me, please. There's a lot of C's there. The Clatsop Chinook historical information to this plaque, because that is important information that needs to be there for this site. And they can contact Dawn as a liaison to the tribe. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, that's exciting. And Julia, my screen is too small, so I can't really see. So I see you typing there. Thank you so much. I'm trusting that all of you maybe can see it, and help her out if she misses anything?
So what I wrote is Slack should be updated to include site as historical information regarding Clatsop Chinook.
What is it about Soderbergh site?
Contact John.
It would be Cat Lyman.
Is that
Wonderful.
acceptable?
Cat Lyman people.
So contact Don Aving for text.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Definitely. Anything else on that? Thank you, Don, for bringing that up.
You're
Moving on
welcome.
to policy 5. Clatsop Plains Cemetery shall be protected. Cemetery under recommended changes. It's now zoned OPR. Policy is completed and should be removed. Any comments on that? Sounds like it's done. All those in favor of recommending that this policy be deleted, raise your hands. Whoops, don't think I'm supposed to vote. So Robert, do you have
Was this policy 5 or which?
policy
Yeah.
5?
Yeah.
And the suggestion is,
Is that we delete that policy because it's been completed.
okay, great.
Okay?
Yes.
I think we're in agreement. Our recommendation is to delete that policy. Moving on to policy 6, county will present,
Yeah, jump down one, Julia.
Come on.
yeah. County will protect the historical character of the Tillamook Lighthouse, Morrison House, Clatsop Plains Memorial Church, and Westport Log Tunnel through appropriate provisions in the zoning ordinance. Recommended changing language in this policy to the county will continue to protect. Anything else that you want to say or any other recommended changes to this policy?
Well, I still don't know what the county obligates itself to do when it says it will protect a site, historical or otherwise. It means it will.
I can give you an example
Okay.
of something that happened a few years back when the I forget which telecom provider wanted to put a cell tower on the Clatsop Plains up on the hill, and we used the policies here in Goal 5 to make sure that it was a stealth tower so that it was not obvious, that you wouldn't just look up and see a cell tower up there. And so we used the policy that way, and that was part of the ways, or part of the way that we protected the site was to keep that looking.
I think there are lots of examples of how the county has protected individual, but is there a definition of protect for the, when it says the county will protect? I mean, does that mean?
It doesn't necessarily mean fund or anything like that. It generally means through policies that the county will do what it can to keep it from being, to keep it from deteriorating. That can take so many different forms. I don't think you could get it all into a definition.
Okay. Good question, Diane. We're doing good on time. So I think that we're on policy 7.
Mm-hmm.
Work with the Clatsop County Historical Society and State Historic Preservation Office to evaluate historical significance of sites and buildings identified by us and our peers. Goal 5, administrative rule will be applied at this time. The county take appropriate is that placed on the study of blah, blah, blah. Sorry. I know that you can all read this as well as I. The only comment I had on this was that Clatsop County will work with the Clatsop County Historical Society, the State Historical Preservation Office, and the Clatsop Chinooks tribe. It seems like
Nation.
that is a group that should be
Yeah, included in that.
included in that.
Yes,
So
I agree.
that would be my recommendation.
Correct. But nix the tribe, put nation, because we're 5 tribes.
Sorry. Thank you.
That's okay.
Okay, so I've just put over into the side, it says add Clatsop Chinook Nation.
Correct.
Were there any other, we've got Clatsop County Historical Society, Historic Preservation Office, Clatsop Chinook Nation, anybody else that you want to add?
I'm not sure what the 2-year time thing is. Is that just to make sure it doesn't languish, or?
That was probably something that was specific at the time that this was developed originally, I'm going to guess. There are a few things like that sprinkled throughout the entire comp plan, and it seems to be that it was a specific thing that somebody was supposed to undertake in a timely fashion. And now we've reached a point where some of it, probably should just be ongoing.
So we could take that, this will be completed in the next 2 years out, or will that just will that undermine the going forward with it? Take it out. Because we want a continuing relationship with the Historical Society and the Chinook Nation and the Historical Preservation.
If you took those words out, then did you want to say Clatsop County will continue to work
Yes.
with?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just take those out, and then on the top line, you can say continue, we'll continue to work with.
Okay, bear with me here. I got to do something clever. Clever never works for me, but I'm going to try it anyway.
Cut and paste.
How's that? Clatsop County will continue to work with, and then strike
Yeah.
through that last sentence.
Yep.
And then
Very
add.
clever, very clever, Julia.
I'm frightening to myself, at least.
So it looks like that completes historic resources policies. And unless I hear something different, we'll move on to cultural resources policies. So moving on to resource 1, I was happy to see under recommended changes that we have added the Chinook. Actually, it should be the Clatsop Chinook Nation, not Indian Nation.
Correct.
Just
Correct.
see.
You got something to drink?
Anything else on policy 1? Looked pretty good to me. Okay, policy 2, again, replacing Indian to Clatsop Chinook Indian, Clatsop Chinook Nation.
Yes.
So we'll just do a search and replace on all of those.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and moving on to historic resources policy.
Just a second.
Mhm.
Okay. Should I be going now?
Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to goal 5, identification of issues and draft policies. And this part, I must admit, sort of confused me. So Julia, I might ask for a little clarification on some of this.
Okay.
It's just sort of,
So let me find out where I'm supposed to be here.
uh-huh.
Oh, there's my cat for anybody who wants to see my cat.
Oh,
Okay.
Hard to see where she begins and ends.
Those are some big feet. She's not a very big cat, but she's got some big feet. So let me look at the. There we go.
Cute.
All right, where should I be here?
in the document on page 37, or actually 36.
There we go.
So where it says Bradwood Landing and Clifton are not considered as historic sites. So the headings are issue to be addressed and proposed draft language. Where did the issue to be addressed come from? Was this from a prior review?
I think it must have been, let's see, policy not necessarily required. CACs need to decide whether to include area as a listed historic resource in Goal 5. So they were not, at the time this was developed, Bradwood and Clifton were not considered historic sites. So I guess the question is, should they be considered such now?
It's kind of out of our area, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's out of your area, but that doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion.
No, we have an opinion about everything, but whether our opinion is.
You know, I've had a number of the committees, because of the people who are on them being involved in so many different things. I've found that a number of folks on the committees have knowledge of areas outside of where they live, either because they've lived here a long time, or because they've worked in the area, or whatever, or they're just people who are interested in things. So it's I've had a number of people say, oh, I remember where there was a rail line over here, and it's, you know, in a whole different area than where they are serving on the committee. So I think it's valuable to ask you. You may not choose to address it because you might not feel like you know enough to be able to address it, but I still think it's valuable to ask you the questions.
I would have to bow out of, because I don't know anything about the history of Bradwood other than that that's where the LNG, what was it, North Star or Gold Star or something.
Northern Star Natural Gas.
Yeah, and that what?
That's more recent. Bradwood Landing and Clifton were old mill towns. There were actually at one time a large number of people who lived in Clifton, and that was actually the site of a huge mill. And Bradwood Landing has actually a deep draft port. And these go back, see, at the time that this was first drafted, they were probably only 50 years gone. Now they're about 100 years gone. Well, maybe not quite. I actually know somebody who grew up in Clifton. And so.
So does the county consider them historically significant?
Well, at this point in time, they're not listed. The question is, should. And so I'm going to guess that there might be people in the county who do consider them historically significant. If you've ever been to the Berry Patch restaurant, which is over in Westport, you'll find a whole hallway with the history of Bradwood and Clifton and the mill sites there.
Can Chinook chime in?
Yes.
The area mostly towards Clifton actually is Cliff Town, and it was shortened, but that was an extensive fishing village between Clifton and Bradwood for the Chinook people.
So, Don, are you recommending that we consider it as historically significant, that area?
Yes, because there's a plan going around, and it's I'm probably part of that being responsible for, is to hopefully one day put a plank house on the beaches of Bradwood Landing, where our people used to gather and watch for the fish to come in, and because that is a restricted part of the channel, or it has a restricted channel that allowed many species of salmon to kind of like pile up or layer up on each other, and it made for efficient gatherings. And that's where there would be large parties of people from all 5 tribes that would come together and share in the bounty of harvesting the fish there.
Who
I
owns it?
testified. I testified for Chinook at the Napa High School when LNG wanted to come in and put a plant there at the Bradwood Landing site, and I submitted historical references to that place being very, very significant to Chinook. And it in one of the books that was authored by our chairman, Tony Johnson, there's a map of the lower Columbia River estuary, and there's a little black dot that points to the village site that was there and the people that occupied it. They were sort of driven off permanently when the railroad was built to transport the Euros in and out. And then, of course, they were evicted when the pulp or the lumber mill came in at Bradwood. And the few that still lived in Clifton succumbed to diseases and were wiped out and replaced by Italians and Greeks and Finns and Swedes and all kinds of different people come in there, and then they took advantage of the fishing that was available there until that all collapsed because of the dams. Yeah, that is a very important site, but one day we would like to have that as a canoe landing with a plank house that can be utilized by not just the tribes that are on the river, but by other kayakers and people coming in, and hopefully we'll have a docent there from Clatsop County or an employee from Clatsop County like they do at Cullowhee Lake, caretaker to watch the place and have the blessing of the Fish and Wildlife Department put a fish cleaning station there. And there's lots of plans for that would be better that it go back to what it once was, and that was a fishing village or use as a fishing site and a camping site, a place to reflect on your past and hopes for the better future. That is.
Can I ask who owns that property?
I don't know the Euro that has it. I think he's on Clatsop Records. I don't remember the tax lot.
It's privately owned. Bradwood is privately owned.
Yeah, most of it is privately owned, except for the beach itself where the water touches. That belongs to, I believe, the Oregon Division of Water or Division of State Lands and Water.
So Dawn, thank you for that background. It sounds like that, Julia, that we would like Bradwood Landing and Clifton to be considered as historic sites because there is history there. So we'd like to add them. That would be our recommendation.
Okay, I'm unable to edit this document that's in front of you here because it's in a format that it's not in a Word format that I can do that with. But I did write down that the committee's recommendation is that Bradwood and Clifton be considered as historic sites and make sure that that includes the Clatsop and Chinook nations in any kind of recognition.
That sounds good.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome. So the next issue to be addressed is, should county become a certified local government? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. Can you enlighten me, Julia?
No, I don't know. The county shall obtain public input in order to determine whether there is public support for the county becoming a certified local government. I'm sorry, but I don't know what that is. I would have said
it's a very narrow definition. You know,
it sounds it.
It had to do with some process where you had to be a quote unquote certified blah blah blah. So it isn't just your common sense understanding. There was a narrow governmental bureaucratic phraseology. And no, Julia and I don't recall who was protective of that verbiage.
So at this point, it sounds like we do not have any recommended changes on that. No opinion.
Except I think we'd like to be edified as
Well,
what
you can look it up. I'm looking it up.
becoming a certified local government. Yeah, ask the Google.
Yeah, I'm asking the Google. And it's it's just another layer of bureaucracy. No, it says preservation through partnership, and I think that probably is. See, it's kind of what it's a consolidation of what we're talking about, but inventory of historic properties, local historic districts and landmarks, local something that I can't read, or tax incentives. Well, that'd be good. Brick and mortar grants or loans, local design review, local property acquisition are some of the, I mean, it's basically the government that we have now, although maybe slightly consolidated.
And maybe with more resources?
That would be nice. Yeah, probably, yes, probably more access to grant and public funds. So we're not again it. At least I don't think we're again it, but
I can make a note here and ask that we get a little bit more information on that than what I can provide, and maybe something specific to what Gail was thinking about, and then come back to you for that. Maybe
very good.
My guess is SHPO knows the answer.
Oh, I'm sure.
So moving on to cultural resources policies. And the first one, issue to be addressed is need more public education and outreach regarding how to properly handle artifacts that might be found on private property. The proposed draft language is within 2 dates, the date of the adoption of this plan. When was this plan adopted? Develop a public education outreach program.
20 years ago.
This is actually stuff that is not in the policies right now, and it's being suggested to you. So this blue sheet is examples of things that somebody's looked at and said, you know what, these are some things that should be identified as issues. And so what Gail is, and Gail was the shepherd for this section of code. So she's suggesting to you that we might need more public education and outreach regarding how to properly handle artifacts that might be found on private property. So she's suggesting some proposed draft language. I mean, what our zoning ordinance says right now is that if you run into artifacts, you're supposed to stop exactly what you're doing at that immediate moment and contact SHPO, and then they're supposed to handle it from there. But she's proposing some language that within 2 years of the date of the adoption of the plan, that we would develop a public education and outreach program to inform property owners how to deal with stuff when they find it, which is probably to let the public know, because I think a lot of people probably really don't know, and maybe that's part of the whole run roughshod over properties and not realize what they're doing.
Thank you for the clarification, Julia. That's really good. Personally, I like the proposed draft language, and I would support that. I'm interested to hear what the others have to say.
Yeah.
Chinook will chime in. Based on a NAGPRA background, we would encourage anyone in the Clatsop land that excavates or locates or loots or whatever artifacts that most obviously belong to or have belonged to the Chinook people, that they contact the Chinook office and the Chinook council. And I have a business card that has that information on there, but we would be obviously the most interested or first interested and only interested party of anything that has been located on Clatsop land. Even if it was an item that came from a Coast Salish tribe, anything from up and down, including BC and Alaska, that came down and to be traded and had as a trade item, and was traded to a Chinook family that resided in one of the 5 tribe areas, we would most certainly take claim to that, because we don't distinguish what is Chinook and what is somebody else's, because it all was incorporated in the process of fair trade and a peaceful negotiation between different Aboriginal cultures. So that being said, we would want to be the primary people to be contacted when that fortunate or unfortunate situation happens where something is dug up. And then obviously if it was dug up from a grave, it would have to be reburied properly with a sanctifying prayer and song, and cannot be raised up again. So
But that
anyway,
would all be incorporated in, I'm sorry, Don.
that is fighting my tears back right now, because I can think of several sites where that desecration took place. So I will speak for Chinook and say that we must be first to be addressed.
So I think that by recommending this proposed draft language, by developing this public education and outreach program, it helps people that don't know what to do on what they should be doing. And so the development of that program, your information would definitely need to be in there. But I strongly support that within 2 years of the date of the adoption, that a public education and outreach program be developed. So anybody else? All in favor of the proposed draft language, raise your hand. Okay. Diane, are you in favor? Oh, okay, good. Okay, then Julia, if you would pass that along, that we are in support of this proposed draft language. And then moving on to the next issue to be addressed, need to develop closer working relationship with Clatsop Chinook Nation. I like the proposed draft language. The county shall identify ways to incorporate more input and cultural and historical knowledge from the Clatsop Chinook Nation. Such methods may include revising the Planning Commission bylaws to include a member of the Clatsop Chinook Nation on the commission, and including the Clatsop Chinook Nation on all public notices. Any other thoughts from anybody?
Okay. Mm-hmm. We appreciate that.
So all in favor of the proposed draft language, raise your hand. Okay, good. It sounds like that we're in support of that. Julia, if you'll pass that information along. Oh. And the last thing that we have to cover, I think, is the list of historical and cultural assets in Clatsop County. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. It's a lot of pages and it's a lot of items. Quite frankly, I kind of got a little overwhelmed after a while. But did any of those, if you had a chance to go through them, did any of them stand out to you on they shouldn't be there, or things that have been missed? And on the document, we're on page 37.
Okay.
So Julia, we're down quite a ways. We're past the worksheets. There we go, just passed. Nope, nope, there we go. So that's where it starts. And then there's that really cool map that I had here and now has disappeared that I would have liked to have more time to study, but any comments?
Yeah, I had a chance to look over other stuff under cultural areas.
Uh-huh.
Where it says Northwest coastal Indians have lived in this area since at least the 15th century. That one hurt a little bit. Well, I should say it hurt a few of the council. It is not Northwest coastal Indians. If we're just referring to the Clatsop tribe, the Clatsop Chinook
So
have lived.
Don, excuse me, Don, can you tell us what page that might be on?
Well, you see Lisa Penner, so you have to go back.
Okay.
Keep going back. Oh, careful. It's underneath the heading cultural areas. I think it's yellowed out. That's too far up. Okay. Keep going.
It's gonna kind of go slow.
Oh, I see.
It's you got to keep. Oh, where? No, keep going down. Okay, it's below. Where the hell is it?
I lost it. So that's Lisa Penner, and I'm going to go a little bit further.
I recall seeing that also, Dawn. I don't remember where though.
Yeah, I know it's on this. I got it off this page.
Was it under the John Goodenberger section?
No, it was. I remember it was said cultural areas. I think it was below the historic inventory process. The historic site preliminary inventory. No. No, there's Clifton and Bradwood.
There is.
And Wana. Wana will be the last one.
Was it not in this horizontal?
Yeah, it was in this section, but okay. I think we might have went over it.
Okay. You said there was some yellow highlighter?
I think it was highlighted cultural areas, and then it began with the goal defines a cultural area as and then a quote, an area characterized by evidence of an ethnic, religious, or social group with distinctive traits, beliefs, and social form.
Cultural areas. Yahoo! You got it.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah,
okay.
So that needs to be reworked.
Okay. Okay. And it was yeah, that one was also concerned. Number one, if it's determined that a land use activity may affect the integrity of an archaeological site, the county shall consult with, and the Chinook Indian Nation should be placed there. And then the State Historic Preservation Office. So just to recap, the Chinook Indian Nation is comprised of 5 tribes: the Clatsop, the Lower Columbia, the Willapa to the north, the Wakayakum people just to the east, and then the Cathlamet just to the east of Clatsop, and that was on the Oregon side also, and then Wakayakum. And then while we're on the same subject, it's where it says Indian, that Karens, that's if we're only referring to Clatsop area, that would be Clatsop, Chinook, Cairns, graves, and other significant. And where it says shall be preserved intact until a plan for their excavation or reinterment has been developed by, and that's where the Chinook Indian Nation would fall under, and then the State Historic Preservation Office. Number 2.
Mm-hmm. So in both places. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
So Julia, on page 25 of the document is another section that is highlighted in yellow, cultural areas. And that is where, on the second paragraph, it's Northwest coastal Indians have lived in the area since at least the 15th century. That is the area that needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay.
There we go.
Since we're referring to the Clatsop side or the Clatsop tribe of the Chinook Nation, it should be Clatsop Chinook have lived in the area since time immemorial. Would be more than adequate, more than appropriate. And then, this has got to go. Available research indicates that it should be Clatsop Chinook typically avoided settling in the forested areas because of the difficulty of travel. I don't know where that came from. Do you know where that came from? I don't know where that came from. The forested areas were not dense like they are today. They were very open because Chinook did not practice clear cutting. Creator allowed Chinook to just harvest what was benefited to them from a storm along the riverbanks of the Columbia and tributary streams. So we made use of the logs and timber that was casted upon the shores to make our canoes or harvest material for making planks, where we used live trees like spruce root and cedar bark. That definitely came from live trees, and there was a different way of harvesting that, where we didn't kill the tree, but we were able to harvest what we needed to make utensils and other things that were necessary for daily living. But
So Dawn, excuse me, Dawn.
Yeah.
Would it be possible, because it looks to me in reviewing this particular paragraph that this was not written by Clatsop Chinook.
No, it wasn't.
And so I was wondering if it would be possible if you would draft a new paragraph, send it to Julia or Gail as a proposed wording change. Would that be possible?
Absolutely.
Wonderful,
In
because I
fact,
think this needs to be updated.
yeah, Council Chairman Gary Johnson already sent me a text about a couple hours ago saying, addressing this particular paragraph, it hit him pretty, it was pretty sensitive. So
Yeah.
he gave some correct information for me to help talk about it here. But your idea of coming up with a draft is much better. We'll just go ahead and do that and submit it to Gail and who else?
Well, or Julia. Julia, where
Oh,
do you
Julia.
think, Don should send this?
If he wants to send it to Gail and copy me, that would be fine, because you never know which one of us is going to have time to work with something. But I think that being able to rework this entire section with updated correct language and information is exactly what you probably have in mind. I can see that it is quite in need of reworking. I just made that in my notes while you were speaking.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll be consulting with the Culture Committee and the council members, and they'll go ahead and get all this done as soon as possible, and I'll get it to Gail and have copy it. Or I'll have Councilman Devin Abing help me with
Perfect.
the technical part of it.
No, perfect. That, yeah, if you get that to us, then we can get the language drafted into it and then provide it in a draft for everybody to review.
Sure.
Okay, well, I feel like that is, I'm so glad that you brought that paragraph up, Dawn, because that is a glaring area that needed to be reviewed. So, or revised, not renewed, revised. So, moving on. Yes.
On the next paragraph, the council was really concerned about these 53 known archaeological sites within Clatsop County, and then later on down it says that there's 90, like it got updated, but we have no information as to how they were updated. We would want to have that list, and I see that the Clatsop County Planning Department has that list, and it's in confidential status, but it would definitely benefit the Chinook Nation to have that list so that we can go out and compare it to what we have and make sure that they're protected.
I'm going to admit that that list is probably so confidential that it is not one that I have ever seen. I don't know where it is. It's definitely protected, maintained in a confidential status. We might have to check with the State Historic Preservation Office. I'm not aware of where the county might have this. It might be very confidential.
Okay.
Definitely not in the records that I have.
Is that something you could forward me into detail? I mean, if it's in a printed form or something that I can make copies of and share with council and culture committee?
We have to locate it and even figure out what it is. I honestly, Mr. Abing, I don't know what this is. I've never seen it.
So would it be possible to draft a new policy? We did get rid of a couple, so perhaps we could add a new policy stating a working relationship between the county and the Clatsop Chinook Nation regarding known archaeological sites in terms of developing, I don't know, procedures or something, so that we can get this on the comprehensive plan and it goes somewhere.
An MOU? Some kind of MOU?
Well, something like that, yes, but I'm thinking that in terms of the document that we're working on, that it actually becomes a policy, just like some of the ones that said, you know, the Cannon Beach Cannon, that they will do such and such, and it's in the plan. perhaps we want to add this as a new policy, that this that these sites will be worked on in partnership with the county and the Clatsop Chinook Nation, just so that it gets down and it's in the plan. And, you know, you can even put a timeline on it, perhaps of, you know, within 2 years of the agreement. Just a thought.
So maybe something that says a policy to allow the county and the Clatsop Chinook Nation to collaborate on archaeological site locations.
Oh, it means it's an ongoing policy that between the relations between state and tribe.
Between county, state, and tribe. Yeah. Councilman Devon Bing said something of this. It should be a working MOU where it would be a work in progress between Chinook, Clatsop County, and the state of Oregon. Is that right? Something like that?
It's a policy in which the state and the tribe have a working agreement on matters of the particular area. So, like, we have a plank house at Ridgefield, Washington, and we have a working MOU with the Fish and Wildlife Refuge there that states basically that anything that is to happen at the plank house, they have to notify the tribe in advance, and the tribe has to give permission for such event to take place. If the Fish and Wildlife decides to hold something without notification to the tribe, it is in their they can be held accountable, and it's a working document. So every year it gets revised and updated, and it allows for a extended amount of communication between both governments, tribal and county and state.
So what I'm
sorry.
No, go ahead, Julia.
I was just wondering, are you looking for a policy that would support that kind of collaboration? I mean, we can't draft something that says there shall be an MOU. This document, this comprehensive plan won't do that. That's not how it works. But I'm wondering if you want to see a policy.
I mean, as long as it's something of that nature. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, worded in MOU, but I mean, it's as long as a document or a policy is structured in such a way that it's a working document. It's a work, it allows for the tribe to have input in any decision that the county decides to make. That's where we need to kind of drive towards, is a working relation between the people that were settled here before the memorial and what we are currently, the current population is now. You know what I mean? So, no more of this is this and that's that. It's, two parties coming together and just having this working relationship on anything that, has to do with Clatsop Plains area, and that.
Clatsop County.
Or Clatsop County.
I was going to ask if you want that to actually be countywide. So you want a policy that supports the creation of that kind of an agreement?
Yes, correct.
Okay, got it.
And Julia, will we be able to just maybe review that wording at the next meeting, and that way we'll make sure that everybody heard the same thing?
What I'll do is I'll put the language in the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then because I'll take it to council. Obviously, we're not meeting this Saturday because of what's going on in the state with all the fires and that. Some of our tribal members have had to be evacuated from their homes. So we as a tribe have decided, or as council has decided not to hold our monthly meeting. But when we do re-meet, I would like to take that verbiage and present it to council so that we can work it, so that it works for both parties. Does that help?
Okay, that helps. I just want to make sure you understand that from what we're creating here, what you're devising is a policy that supports this kind of an agreement. It's not the agreement itself.
Yes.
No, right. It's just like a new way of handling or it's like a new form of communication. I would say, instead of the county just doing what they want to do, they have to now, talk to the tribe and be in open communication with any development that may be on particular tribal land or a site. Just having that open dialogue. That's all it is, really, just an open dialogue.
Robert.
I am still back on that page 60 stuff about the Indians not living because of lack of food and whatever in this strip I'm looking out on. We're at the lowest end of the Alaskan Sitka spruce swamps. In the wintertime, especially in the olden days before they were drained, are hell to go through. And yet it was full of game. The Indians did live here. So I'm underscoring that piece about they typically didn't live where it was hard to travel. It's I'd be happy to go back there sometime, but the spruce swamps here are damn difficult to go across, especially in the olden days. When the water was 3 feet deeper. So I don't want to swallow too much that the Indians stayed away from the swampy spruce forests where it was hard to travel. It is hard traveling. And I'm happy to take you Don out here someday and force him to walk through it because he'll be so damn glad to get out of it. But this is Indian land, and it was a tough place. A lot of evidence from the Lewis and Clark journals of it being hard to get through. They're just detailed Anglo writings about it. So I'm just saying I don't want to pass over too much. The nature of the area here is a tough swamp to live in, but they did. They had their dunes, their old trails like the ones that go, whatever it's called, that goes through Gerhardt that people don't want to be recognized as ancient trails. But it's a rich historic area that I don't want us to gloss over. Period.
Well, I'll concur with you on the densities of the forests in the swampy areas, but I have to remind that we are a people of the water, and we used the waterways that were plentiful to travel in various size canoes, from your small one-man canoes to your freight canoes on the bigger bays and rivers. But
We had
that was,
portages. There was portages.
and there were always portages through these swamp areas and to connect with other places. So it was,
Yes.
as far as Chinook was concerned, we were a master of our place, and it wasn't just, oh, here's a set of woods, we're just going to go through it. The Lewis and Clark party, yeah, that's their thinking. We're there, that's east, that's west, we just plow right through it. But again, we made use of portages. Some of those portages, thank God, are still intact. I'm not at liberty to show them, but they're still intact. And anyway, I've said it.
Someday I want to do a show and tell where I'm agreeing with you, but generally in the wintertime, the area flooded over. There was no Carnahan ditch to drain it. Yes, the Neocoxy actually functioned and went all the way down to the Neawanna estuary. But so someday I'm happy to do a show and tell for any of you down here
And move it.
on the ground.
You have it.
If you don't mind, we're going to wrap it up here because we are coming to the end of our time. Again, we have no public comments. Don, I look forward to seeing a rewrite of that paragraph, that section, because it definitely did need reviewing. Any closing comments before we adjourn?
I have one here that is in the document that kind of contradicts the statement that that was written about 53 sites. But this one here says the State Historic Preservation Office lists 90 sites. So, and then that the location of these sites is not publicly listed to prevent looting, scavenging, and destruction. That's what was written in the document here. I'm going to assume that because this was written after the 53, that somebody did some more research, and we would like that list to compare with the ones we have on in our records.
Okay.
For preservation's sake.
Yeah,
And
I think that's what Julia is going to be working on. It doesn't sound like it's going to be easy to find, but yes, I think, yeah, you have been heard.
Yeah, you did.
90.
Yeah, you did.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to thank both Devin and Don for the history lesson today.
Are
We're
we
done.
going to discuss the rest of the list at a later time? I picked out the ones that were of interest to Chinook.
I would like to do that. So Julia, if you could put that on the agenda for next time, that we will leave some time to discuss the historical and cultural assets in Clatsop County.
Yeah, I've got 4 council members that want to know Chief Cullaby's gravesite,
Yeah.
for instance.
Unfortunately, we're out of time today, but we
Is that the
will,
historical
if we may, we want to put that on the list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just name the list for me again. Which list
The
is this?
where it in the document where it starts historical and cultural assets in Clatsop County on
I got it.
page 37, we want to be able have time to discuss that portion of the document.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, everybody, I'm being less formal today and I'm just adjourning us, and we'll see you next month at the regular time and regular
All right.
time.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye-bye.
But
Thank you, everyone.
Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Mary.
You're most
Thank you.
welcome.
this,
I heard that.
you,
What are you talking about?
are you off a bit?
No, not yet. I don't know how to
You're off
do
it.
it. I'm trying to. Oh, here it is.
You have to